Hey,
There we go. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Great. Welcome, guys.
Good morning or afternoon, wherever you are.
Good midday. How are you, John?
I'm well. I'm well. How are you doing?
Really good. Really happy for you to be here.
Happy to be here too.
Before everybody else jumps on, John, do you mind if I share with them what you're up to at Columbia?
No, not at all. I was gonna try to keep that to myself, but if you feel the need to do that, that's cool.
No
It's
worries.
no, because
Got it.
I don't.
I'm just proud of you. That's all.
No. Well, hey, I have you to thank for being here,
Oh,
literally.
thank you. Thank
So,
you. Thank you. Well, welcome. And Kate, you are, we didn't see you last time. What was going on in your world? We missed you.
Terrible, tragic conflict of interest that I couldn't avoid.
Oh,
I
no.
pleaded narrative RX, but
Didn't
nobody
happen.
was having it.
Well, we're happy to have you back. It was not the same without you.
Happy to be here. Like in that halo behind you, Julia.
Oh, I planned it just. Are you?
she brings it wherever she goes.
So,
Yeah.
guys, I have to introduce you to my dearest friend on the planet who is here with me because she was helping with my baby shower this weekend. She's from
Aw.
Pensacola, Florida. Her name is Stephanie.
Hey,
Hey,
Stephanie.
Stephanie.
Hi, Stephanie.
Oh, it's not working yet.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Anna.
Hi,
We were
how are you,
Hey,
John?
Anna.
Hi, Kate. Good to see you too. My mom says hi. She's just not available for the session tonight, but I think she's hoping to come at the end and say hello. But yeah, she couldn't make it.
no worries. Tell her we love her and we miss her so much.
Yeah, of course.
Welcome, Anna. I'm gonna give other folks just another couple minutes to join in, and I'll do a little screen share while we're waiting. In the meantime, I have an icebreaker for us. So pull up your chat box. And Anna, I think you'll remember where we got this one from. The icebreaker question today is, write about how you spend most of your time, or write about how you waste the most time during your day. Write about how you waste the most time during your day. If you want, you can write yours in here. Okay, so pulling up my. See this real quick. I'm just wondering if someone need to be able to create a group. That's really very much. All right, thanks y'all for your patience. We're trying to get Stephanie set up on a laptop so she can enjoy the private rooms when we do our breakout rooms as well. So we're kind of navigating in the background. But all right, so our big waste of time. John says, the only times I waste are during daily meditation, yoga practice, and sleep. How interesting that all of these wasted times are so valuable. Sounds like these are great ways to waste time.
Yeah, they're not a waste, but
Yeah.
actually I could add when I'm at work, Windows is a waste of my time. I don't use a PC at home, so I don't have that problem, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, oh, you mean actual like you mean the program Windows?
Yes.
Got it. I was gonna say
Yeah.
Windows are a big waste of my time too. I'm always looking out. Yeah, totally. Totally. Well, it's better than my waste of time, which is mostly social media. It's at least a better use of a computer.
Yeah.
And Kate agrees. She's like, what's a waste? Waste. Big question. You cannot kill time without injuring eternity.
I love that.
Ooh, that's a good one.
That's
Kate
beautiful.
for the win. Visual.
Love it.
Yeah, we have to. Is that Thoreau? That's so good. That's so good. I wasted by not dreaming enough. Ooh, is that a Kate original? Yes. That's beautiful. I love that so much. I'm gonna like tack that one up on my nightstand or something. I waste my time by not dreaming enough. Anna says, I think I waste my own time when I do those normal things in the world. True.
Yeah.
True.
No kidding.
Love it. And then waste of time is not paying attention. That's great as well, Anna. Thank you so much. Wonderful. Well, you guys far exceeded my expectations on this waste of time assignment. You guys really point to the flaw in the question of what a waste actually is. I'm going to see if anybody else. We're going to have a really small group today. That's awesome. It'll be nice and cozy. I'll keep it open just in case, because I think we had one or two other folks who wanted to join. And because we had our baby shower this weekend, I did not do a lot of reminders that I normally send out. So I'll take accountability for that one. Oh, we have another one. Yay. Ah, yes, you're Jeff today. That's great.
Okay,
You'll see Jeff, but it's Stephanie. Jeff is my husband's name. Stephanie, just to let you guys know, is a massage therapist. She also works in chronic pain, and she actually taught me how to do body work. She's been my mentor for almost 15 years. So really, really lucky to have her here today. Thank you for coming.
Best student.
Thank you.
And friend.
Are you available, Stephanie, during the breakout rooms for massages?
Right.
If we could have figured out a way to do massage over Zoom, the pandemic would have been a very different experience.
Right? Yeah. All right. All right.
Jimi Hendrix is in the building.
So
I'll move on upstairs.
perfect. Thank you, students. All right, friends, thank you so much for your patience. So today, I wanted to talk a little bit about what narrative medicine is, because Stephanie has to hear about it ad nauseum a lot on the phone when we do our catch-up calls. But she's never done a live workshop before. So I wanted to, I know a lot of us you've heard my narrative medicine spiel before, but I wanted to just take a moment to give a high-level overview of narrative medicine as an ethical practice, as a practice of activism. And how that works is literally by teaching us how to slow down and pay attention. I love that Anna brought that to our attention front and center from the very first question. How we waste time is not by paying attention. And narrative medicine is really a practice of that. And the more we pay attention, the more we're moved to pay greater attention. And that's where the ethical practice ends. It's also a practice of leaning into our blind spots, even if those blind spots make us really uncomfortable. These blind spots, they don't just bubble up out of who we are as, individual people in a vacuum. They also arise based on our contexts, our social and economic contexts, our local and global contexts, our historical contexts. They are built into the worlds that we inhabit. Our communities and our era and our professions all ask us to look at certain things and away from others. So naturally, we develop blind spots. This week, we'll actually be exploring a painting that depicts an experiment on the properties of air. That's all I'll say about it for the time being. It depicts an experiment on the properties of air, which I see as something that is largely invisible, mostly mysterious to the naked eye, and absolutely essential for life. So as we look at this painting together, I invite you to wonder about, the air of your life, the thing that is sustaining you in the background the whole time, but which you might not see all the time. Maybe we call it a blind spot. Maybe we just call it cultural context. This is a painting that is breaking my moratorium on old dead white men. I traditionally don't like to look at painters or poets who get have already gotten a lot of press time. This particular painting, though, I just found so fascinating that selfishly I wanted to bring it to the group just to suss out with you incredibly brilliant people so that we can figure out what's going on with it together. So I hope you'll take this opportunity to really lean into the things that go unnoticed, even if, or maybe especially if, it makes us uncomfortable. So I'm going to lost my screen share. There we go. All right. Oh, no, sorry, y'all. I'm having all kinds of technical difficulties today. There we go. So Joseph Wright of Derby, very old dead white dude, is Joseph Wright. He was an English landscape and portrait painter. He's been acclaimed as the first professional painter to express the spirit of the Industrial Revolution. He's notable for his use of what's called tenebrism, which is an exaggerated form of the chiaroscuro effect, which is really just an effect that enhances contrast between light and dark. So his paintings often feature candlelit subjects. I'm going to give you a little bit of background on the painting that we're going to be looking at today. I'm going to actually take us out of the screen share here and open us up to a screen share straight from Google so that you can see this. We can zoom in on different details of the painting itself, because this is one I think we're going to really want to see closely and to lean into. All right, so you guys can see what I mean by chiaroscuro effect here, right? Light and dark. Can everybody see this pretty well right now? Great, and just let me know where you want me to zoom as you're exploring different aspects of this painting. This is a painting that tells a story. They all do, but this one is begging for narrative. It's begging for a plot. We've got a whole community of people here. It's called An Experiment on a Bird in the Air Pump. Let me say that one more time. An Experiment on a Bird in the Air Pump. It was painted in 1768, oil on canvas. It's one of a number of candlelit scenes that Wright painted during the 1760s. It departed from convention of the time by depicting a scientific subject in a reverential manner, formerly reserved for scenes of historical or religious significance. And just for a little bit of historical context of what was actually happening during this era, potentially why Wright chose to feature this particular subject. In 1659, a man named Robert Boyle commissioned the construction of an air pump, then known as a pneumatic engine, but which is today known as a vacuum pump. Construction of the pump enabled Boyle to conduct a great many experiments on the properties of air, which was at the time little understood. Boyle tested the effects of rarefied air on combustion, magnetism, sound, and barometers, and examined the effects of increased air pressure on various substances. He listed 2 experiments on living creatures, like the dove that you see here. Experiment 40, which tested the ability of insects to fly under reduced air pressure, and the dramatic Experiment 41, which demonstrated the reliance of living creatures on air for their survival. So we're going to take just a few minutes painting in silence. And I'm going to let you guys encounter each of these characters and their stories. Pull up the chat box and write any interesting details that you notice going on in the scene. We'll take just a minute and a half in silence. All right, Anna is noticing the facial expressions, the body gestures and positions. Anna, I love how you always have such a keen eye for embodiment. John notices the gentleman closest to the pump staring straight towards us, the viewers. That's very interesting. Let's put a pin in that because we definitely need to come back to that direct gaze. John also notices the woman pulling open or closed the curtains to reveal or cover the moon. Very interesting. Ooh, just the fact that you brought both of those up, John, makes me wonder, is that person also looking at us? I don't know. We'll definitely examine both of those characters in just a moment. Kate says, the female child's visible alarm transmitted to the mother, mollified, explained, rationalized, justified by the apparent father, or seen in reverse, the effect of male orientation to the world imposed on or imparted to the female sensibility. Dang, girl. That is, we will definitely have to lean into the gender dynamics here and explore that together. I see a lot of other interesting things happening between men and women in the scene that I'd love to talk with you about. Great. So we're already getting a sense of the plot of this painting. Even though it's still, we can see a lot of activity, a lot of action. And we have a cast of characters. So let's look at them together. What kind of people are here? You've mentioned a few already. Tell me about them. Just shout it out. You don't have to put it in a chat box.
Young and old.
Yeah. You know, I think it could be, let's just make a list of our characters and let's describe them. Who do you see? Let's start with anybody.
The mad scientist.
Mhm.
Sounds like Einstein.
Yeah.
Two young girls, particularly one smaller than the other, like sisters, but two young girls anyway.
Where do you see the two young girls?
To the right of the experiment at the table.
So,
Yeah.
so let's see. These gals?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. How do I go back out? I might have gotten backed
This is
myself
a-
in the corner.
this is
There we go.
That was a great zoom in itself.
Unplanned. Okay. So we have two young girls, could be sisters. I think somebody else mentioned that they might be mother-daughter. We're not sure, but they're definitely young women.
And then across the table from one another, that girl on the right in the light, and across the table from her to the left, what looks like a boy with his head canted to one side, with a very different expression looking at the dove from the girl.
Yes, interesting. Can we describe their facial expressions, the girls versus the maybe boy to the side with his head canted up? I'll zoom in here so you guys know who we're talking about.
Wow.
How would you describe this expression?
Interest, curiosity, enthralled.
Kind of lost in the moment of it.
Wonderful. Yeah.
You know, I'm going with absolutely horrified.
Ah,
That person is stricken, mouth kind of agog, eyes wide open, like speechless.
okay.
That's what's striking me right there.
Hmm.
And you asked a question before that question, which was how would you describe the differences between the female people in the picture and the male people, the facial expressions? I think the several of the women look pretty concerned and not happy about what's going on, and with the exception of the gentleman who is seated in the foreground of the picture.
Yeah.
Actually, both of those gentlemen, yeah, that one and the one across from him, they both seem very contemplative, but the guys are, kind of not seeming too concerned. They're just, yeah, I don't know.
Rationalized it.
Go ahead, Anna.
Just kind of very like looking at it very straightforwardly, kind of with a rational eye rather than an emotional eye. I get the kind of an idea of like emotions versus logic or logistics here, or a rational brain kind of thing. So I'm also struck by, just to point out, if you can zoom into the other, I think the third female to the left, beside the scientist, her face is kind of strikingly plain to me, like very kind of not numb, well, maybe numb in some level, kind of not like the young girls who kind of show their pain and kind of their preference of resistance to this thing, but she seems, I mean, kind of as if it's not the first time, and it's kind of her world, and a bit depressed, I think, looking very exhausted and just powerless.
That's interesting. I see them as a couple, these two.
Yeah, okay.
He looks to be sitting almost on his lap or on the arm of his chair. And in the overall, what do you call that? The composition of the whole painting. If the dove and the experiment is the center, then all the figures around it are responding to it in different ways, obviously, which we're talking about. But those two lovers are there, who knows why? Maybe they've got something better to do afterwards. Maybe this was on his agenda to do and they stopped by, but she's not very interested.
I see that too, Kate. I see both. How interesting that you can kind of see both things playing out in this expression. She is definitely looking away from the scene. She doesn't have any, exuberance or horror in her, but there is her attention is elsewhere. And it seems connected in particular to this. I love how you point out too spatially that everything is centered around this dove. These two are centered around each other.
Mm-hmm.
They're like almost off to the side in their own world.
And that's reiterated in their clothing. They've got the same palette going on. I mean, he's got a brown jacket, but they've got the black and white contrast, his stripes and the lapel there. And the two women on the other side, the sisters or the mother-daughter, also have the same palette in their clothes. They're matching palettes.
Yeah. So it's almost as if they come in pair groups.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And now that you pointed out, I wonder if these guys in the foreground have a kind of partner pair going on too.
They're both green-ish. I see green.
Yeah. So if we're seeing these as the lovers here, and we're seeing these as the emotive women who are very concerned, we've got certain stereotypes emerging here. What is the stereotype, or what do you imagine is going on in the story with these two men in the foreground? Keep talking. I'm just going to plug in really quickly.
I love the stuff you all brought up about coloring of the clothing. So I'm noticing now that you all pointed out the different colors and the different schemes. Do you notice it seems like everybody's color of their clothing is kind of muted and washed out, except for the gentleman with the burgundy cloak in the middle, who's right next to the pump. His is it's a more vibrant color, right?
Yeah, it's also in the background as well, in the kind of to the right, and it just kind of bounces off everything else in the room.
It's interesting that it's, John, that you refer to it as a cloak, because I was looking at it and thinking he's in his nightclothes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, like a bathrobe. Yeah.
Right. Everybody else is dressed, and he seems to have thrown a night bathrobe over his nightdress. And his hair is all undone. Everybody else has got their hair tied back. Well, I guess the fatherish figure doesn't. Anyway, he looks a bit disheveled.
You're right. It's so funny you mentioned that. Somebody mentioned Einstein, and that's really appropriate. Or, I mean, the first thing that came to mind when I saw that photo was Scrooge. I don't know why. Like, just pulled out of my head. Just like Ebenezer Scrooge being woken out of bed, holding the candle, like, who goes there? Weird.
So it begs a very interesting question, which is, this is clearly a social gathering. I mean, to me, it's an interesting question. But it's happening at night. The moon is high. What are they all doing there? Has he invited them? Was it prearranged?
Yeah, I want to know what's in that glass. What's in the glass? What do you think's in the glass, folks?
Can you zoom in, Julia, to the glass?
The glass with the dove, or the glass in the bottom?
Yeah, that one. The one in the foreground. Yeah.
Like
Boy, doesn't that look like a person crouching?
Mm-hmm.
Does it? Can you explain that, John? What you're seeing? How you
Kind
see?
of someone who's kind of like almost like the thinker or an angel, bowing
Hunchback.
their head. Or something, or a group of people that are doing much the same as these two young girls are doing here, comforting each other, like holding each other. Isn't that weird?
I see it as an organ, like a heart or something.
Ooh.
But then I'm also noticing the stopwatch, the
Yes.
clock. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
No,
But to put the heart and the stopwatch that close together, and then think about the different reactions of the people around the table, those who are studying, measuring, calibrating, quantifying, and those who are reacting in horror or from their hearts is very interesting.
That really resonates with what Anna was saying earlier about this weird tension between logic and rationalism on one side and emotion on the other.
Yeah. And also maybe to the point about the moon, that there's kind of a seance-y, top secret quality for me to this, that is, are there any lights lit in this room? Or is it just the moonlight? What's casting the light? Where's the light coming from that lights up the glass and some of the people's expressions? I mean, in this era, I don't really know what was going on with people's attitudes towards science. Whether it was, how does that relate to witchcraft and
The lunar.
the occult?
Yeah. What can you tell about at least how the people in this painting feel about science and the occult, just based on the details that you see here?
So this is not at all something that they feel like broadcasting. That's what I'll say about that.
So it's secretive. Nice. Yeah, done by cover of night.
And yet children are present.
And yet children are
At
present.
least two. I mean, I'm seeing the one on the one holding the curtain open or about to close. It seems like an apprentice, maybe.
Yeah, and the gender's unclear to me. I'm not sure. I see perhaps a boy here. I don't know, but a young person, yes. Something that I think we've already mentioned a little bit, but just could be interesting for us to look at as a total, as a community. Where are these people looking? Where are each of these people looking? How many people are looking at the bird?
One, possibly 3, 4.
3 or 4. Yeah.
Which ones?
The curtain boy or girl?
Curtain boy or girl? Yeah.
Yeah. The young child, the youngest.
Definitely.
Yeah, and the struck boy on the other side.
Yeah.
And possibly the man beside him kind of could be looking, he could be kind of looking kind of directly past the bird, it seems, but it could be at the bird as well. I think the belly of the bird.
Maybe. Or maybe at this guy over here.
Yeah, it's not clear. Yeah.
Not clear for him.
I don't know. That's what I see.
Where's everybody else looking? Who's not looking at the bird? What does that tell us about them?
They seem to all be looking at other stuff, at their own stuff. The folks that Kate identified as a couple are looking towards each other. The gentleman, yeah, those two. And the gentleman in the red is looking straight out towards us. Wow, what a look in his face.
Yeah.
Just like,
describe that.
Sorry?
Describe that, the look.
I think it's kind of beautiful. To be kind of whimsical about it.
Is he looking at us, or is he looking at the other guy who's looking at the bird? Is he looking at the guy with in the foreground on the left? Can we see that? Can we see that guy's face? Yeah, the one in the foreground. this guy. He's clearly looking at the bird. Yeah, and then that hand. So the mad scientist in the bathrobe looks to me to be explaining to that fellow.
Okay.
So his gaze to me looks directed at that guy. Maybe not. I don't know. I can't tell. What's going on in the glass, Julia? Can we see the dove? Can we see the dove's face? Oh dear. Oh, it's a cockatiel.
The cockatiel, you're right. I apologize. I called it a dove.
Look at the tears. Oh my God.
That shows me. Yes. So what's going on with the dove? Where's the dove looking? I keep calling it the dove.
Bird.
The bird. I'll call it the bird. Keep it broad.
A sacrificial creature.
Well, literally.
One eye is looking straight out towards us,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, because they look kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is so interesting that you said sacrificial creature, because I realized that's exactly why in my mind I leapt to dove. That's very interesting. Yeah. Yeah. So we've got one eye looking at us. What about its body? What do you notice about its body?
Well, it looks crippled by its situation to me. One wing is outstretched, but it's not, the wing isn't up. It's not as though it looks to me like it's nearing the end of its struggle. One wing isn't even visible. It's kind of collapsed on that wing. And the other wing is stretched out almost reflexively, but it's not up, like it's still trying to fly.
Yeah, still trying.
Do we see the, like, what would be tail feathers and stuff kind of behind it pointing up? I mean, it almost looks to me like the bird may have just dropped in the glass.
Yeah.
Like it's
he's
kind of
skidding.
flailing on the way down.
Mhm.
Probably is,
Um,
yeah. Up and down, kind of.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's bracing itself or
It kind of looks like
trying
it's
not to keep skidding.
I'm struck by the level of detail, especially the detail of the underlit wing.
yeah.
And how you can see each of those discrete feathers, not perfect, but jagged, tussled,
kind of wetted, and
wetted, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And the breast of the bird lit from underneath. I can see it looking at us, but I can also see it looking at that wing. I can see it looking at its wing as if it's shocked that it used to fly. Or maybe shocked that it can't.
Does anyone see several feathers in the glass?
Like in the background.
Oh yeah, right there, Julia. Yeah, right there.
I wasn't sure if they were feathers or drops of liquid.
Or reflection from whatever light is in the room. But yeah, I mean, interesting. You pointed out the detail of the feathers, and that's kind of where my eye went also.
Which would support your feeling, John, that your impression that this bird has just plummeted to the bottom of the glass.
So here's a big, vague question that I apologize in advance for keeping so broad. Given this community's dynamic, what do you think this particular scene reveals about communities in general?
We'll have different perspectives. Like there's, to one certain situation, some people could be what someone could be curious about, another could be disturbed by, another have completely no feeling or get me out of here. People are
Yeah.
interested in the different dynamics and all their perspectives.
Mhm.
Someone can be afraid while someone finds it fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. They'll have a different relationship to the bird for sure.
Mhm.
Emotionally, but they could also be socioeconomically. I mean, since I see the kid at the window as an apprentice, this is work for him. And the
Mhm.
couple over to the left, maybe it's one stop on their evening of entertainments, or maybe, and then the scientist is, it's his avocation, so he's totally into it. Etc.
Yeah. Yeah, their come-froms are influenced by something going on with their whatever vocations or
Mhm.
socioeconomic backgrounds they're bringing to this scene for sure.
Mhm.
What else?
Very, very divided, I think.
Divided.
Mhm.
Where do you see that?
Ultimately, well, even I I can see it through just even the beginning when I mentioned the facial gestures and expressions, like which ones are leaning into it, leaning out to it, completely disinterested in it, and kind of sitting in their own agenda kind of about the thing.
Mhm.
I mean, metaphorically, if I want to add, even just the intensity of the black and white shot, the light and dark, and I mean, there's a lot to say about that just in itself. I'm not gonna code it with just one idea, but just I don't know, that intensity of light and dark, and it makes it somber and serious as well. Like I just have this, when I opened up the painting, it's kind of just serious because of just the that type of shading and shadow and effect, you know.
Yes, let's pause here. There's a lot to unpack with the light and the dark, especially given the fact that that's what this particular painter is known for, is this chiaroscuro effect. These candlelit scenes, or perhaps some other lighting. Where is the light coming from in the scene? John asked that question before. Let's talk about that now. Is there more than one source?
I mean, it seems like it's coming from the glass that we all don't know, or at least behind the glass. Maybe there's something behind it, and the glass is kind of muddy and we can't see through, or the glass could be full of a potion, some crazy thing.
Looks potion-y, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you zoom in, Julia, at the base of that glass? I'm wondering if there's the base of a candlestick. Just, yeah, what is that black?
Yeah.
Is that a candle or a lamp of some kind that we can't see that's behind it?
I reckon that's a good guess.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I mean, the way that the darkest part of the thing inside looks like it's, it has that effect of there's a light right in front of it,
Mhm.
But there was still an artistic choice here to put something in front of that candle so that it would be backlit, so even
Right.
if it's a candle, and it's a very logical explanation for where the light is coming from, there's still an artistic choice to put this in front of it.
Yeah. Kind of.
And the only other light I see in this painting is from the
Mm.
really, really dim light of the moon. Yeah, right.
Mhm.
Anyone else?
Oh yeah. Kind of, yeah.
It really underscores your point, John, about the difference between what's going on in the scientific, well, maybe not difference between, maybe similarities between what's going on between the science of this and the magic in this, or the occult of this. Another idea might be that this is sulfur, which I know theaters at that time were using sulfur to light their stages. And they had things that looked like this. So it could be a candle behind, it could be sulfur, but regardless, there's something potion-y about it.
Yeah, look at all this. There's carbonation on the surface. Little
Yeah.
bubbles.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I do not want to drink of
Light.
that.
Yeah, the kind of fact that it's not direct light. It's kind of indirect and, alluded to, and not kind of explicit. It's very implicit, and there's a kind of a hidden layer or a suggestion, which is kind of not seedy, but questionable in itself or something. Suspicion. It draws up suspicion.
Yeah, so it harkens back to that secretive feeling, secretive, suspicious. I also see a little bit of maybe they're both occult, the moon and the whatever potion that's backlit by a candle, or is maybe sulfur. Maybe they're both occult, but I do see that there's maybe something more occult about what's happening in this room, where all this direct light is coming from that one thing in the center. Whereas the moon almost seems to be, especially with the young person who's pulling the shade to reveal it, or perhaps conceal it. I guess it's not clear whether that curtain is being opened or closed. It's almost as if it's like nature versus man-made thing.
Yeah.
Natural science, man science.
Yeah, I was just blocking out the moon to see what this painting would look like without the moon in it, and it's a very different painting.
Yeah.
Ooh, let's do that. Here, I'm gonna see if I can move this. Oh, nope. All I can do is that. Well, I guess we can all just kind of put our hands over it.
Yeah, that is true.
What's missing without the moon?
Nature,
Nature.
the logic or the greater mystery of nature. Without the moon, to me, in line with what you're saying, Julia, it's just about people doing people things.
Yeah. It's also it's painted so softly. It's like, so there's no harshness. It's not even, and it's such a bright. It's a full moon as well, and you'd think it actually would be probably the brightest thing usually. Yeah, but it's just so softly painted, and it has that nature, that part of us that's soft and not hard and kind of solid against kind of black and white kind of ideas.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that it's framed like that in one pane, and it's so small compared to the importance. I don't know if the painter supports this, but at least the people in the room are focused. Nobody's looking out the window at the moon. They're all focused on their human enterprise here.
Even the lovers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All focused on the human enterprise. Even the person who is either closing or opening the window.
Yeah.
Not looking at that at all.
Julia, can you focus in on, there's one guy we haven't looked at, the guy in the lower right, who's, can we see him? What's he doing with his hands?
Kind of just.
Go ahead.
Looks like he's clutching his spectacles and his hands are kind of like this.
And then is he holding onto the top of a cane? Can you follow that down, Julia? Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
He's supporting himself on that cane.
Oh,
I
very
find
good.
it-
I did not even come close to seeing that. That's awesome.
I find it interesting that
So
he's
he's
taken
leaning
off.
up on it.
Yeah. I find it interesting that he's taken off his spectacles at this spectacle. He's not really paying attention to it or the thing that everyone wants to see. He's kind of
Looking away. Yeah.
looking away. I think you said he was one of the people in contemplation about something else, not there, and who knows what he's thinking of. You don't know if he's for or against. I don't know if he's kind of like yes or no. It's not giving us.
Yeah. It's as if he's taken in the details of the scene prior to us joining the picture and is now just ruminating and trying to figure out how he feels about it or he's in reflection, it seems. And how interesting that he is leaning on that cane.
What's the gizmo on the table in front of him?
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing, I think. Looks like an elaborate lighter, but I don't even
Or
know.
maybe it's what you use to tamp the light out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it looks like a little, if you lifted it up.
Ooh. Well, that would be very interesting symbolically if we have our philosopher, I'll call him, in the corner, ready to light or tamp out that light.
Yeah, like, yeah, hold darkness over light.
Yeah.
Light over darkness.
Yeah. And how interesting would it be if this very unassuming figure, the last one that we've really paid much attention to, is the one responsible for the light? And maybe contemplation is a part of that, symbolically at least. Which brings me to this question of activity and inactivity. You know, what is actually happening here? Who is doing what? We know where they're looking. Pick a character or group of characters. What are they doing?
Wow.
Okay, I'm just going to take a stab at something that I've found interesting since the beginning. So the gentleman in the center next to the pump. Okay, the other gentleman next to him. Yep. Now go down the one that, nope, other way. Other
way,
side.
sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good.
There we
Okay,
go.
so now you've got three folks who are all touching each other. They're all holding each other. This gentleman seems like, I wrote in the chat box, he's mansplaining to the girl who's shielding her face, or he's attempting to comfort. But it looks like, with that finger up, he's telling her exactly what she should be observing and thinking. And she is hiding her face in sadness or shame or anxiety or anguish or something. And she is being hugged as well by the very small girl. And so those three people are kind of in a kind of a clutch. And I feel like that's interesting. That says so much. The three expressions there say so much.
Yes. You're making me think now that, because I was imagining this trio as kind of centered around the little girl. But now I'm wondering if it's not centered a bit more around the older girl, the young one providing support for her while the other one trying to mansplain what's actually happening. Two very different ways of dealing with what looks to me a lot like trauma going on with the woman in the middle who can't even look at it. She's so disturbed.
Yeah.
I see her trying to protect the younger girl as well with that hand around her neck. And the younger girl could be trying to console the older one, or she might be, that hand on her sleeve might be reaching for, she might be trying to steady herself or, but interesting how the two hands, the man's hand around the older woman's shoulder points at the hand of the woman he's holding around. The two hands are pointing at one another is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And not reaching.
So the hand of the little girl pointing, oh, I'm sorry.
No, the hand around the neck of the little girl is in a very similar position and orientation as the hand around the older girl. I don't know if she's the mother or the older sister or what, of the, those two hands. It's interesting that the man's hand is so gentle. He could have had his hand on top of her shoulder. Stop now, that's enough. But that kind of sideways parallel embrace seems a more comforting gesture.
Mm-hmm. And yet that concern on this little girl's face, it persists. Yeah.
I mean, I also feel what's kind of ironic or interesting anyway is, if perhaps, because I do find interesting now the kind we're centered around the one who's not looking at all, who's avoiding and doesn't, maybe is kind of confused or just not looking. And the male, kind of dominant male over the girl is looking at her, not looking at what's happening, and trying to say it's fine, it's fine in his mind, it's okay. And she is also, whether she's comforting or embracing the child, but she's looking at it. It's like the child sees and the man isn't seeing what,
Mhm.
man isn't looking at what he's talking about. And the girl is just seeing it, like just taking it in, and so I think it's just really interesting that they just popped in a child into this thing. I think even if you just took out, again, took out the moon or took out the kids, you might look at it with a very
Mm.
simpler way. But then adding kids just adds that kind of, oh yeah, there's kids in the world, and and there's a thing that they do and they show and they see, so she's giving us the eye that we
Mm.
are all looking at with a little bit of itch at this painting.
Wow, that is
Absolutely.
profound.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
And how interesting that only the kids or the younger ones are the ones who can look directly at it, or seems to me
Mm.
that the only ones we're really sure about that are looking at the bird are the youngest people. And maybe it's just because of her shorter stature and the physics of light, but this little girl is the one that's most illuminated in the center.
Mm.
It's got the most light on her, the most clear facial expressions, and the most exposure.
Yeah.
That skin, there's a lot of skin here, the shoulder and the chest, the open breast of the dress. And I don't know much about, fashion in the, mid 18th century, but I just know that looks like a very vulnerable position.
And it kind of reflects the bird then, because the bird's breast is so like that. So they're
Mhm.
both just so stunned, I think.
Yeah.
They're both they're both so similar.
What does
I
that
guess.
tell us? Why is there a similarity between this young girl and the bird?
Innocence.
And I think you said it a minute ago. You said vulnerability, right? And maybe like we think about the young and we think about this poor cockatiel who had no choice. I wonder if vulnerability doesn't describe what the maybe the artist was trying to put into this painting, saying that who when we mess with nature, when we mess with science, who is vulnerable? Our future and the people, or the focus of the experiments, right? Maybe that's what I'm hearing from what you just said, and that's really amazing. I don't know. It's just a question that's coming up.
When we do science, who is vulnerable?
Right.
Great question. Great question.
Looking then at the woman across the table, the one sitting next to her presumed lover,
Mhm.
and how unexposed she is. Her throat is throttled by that choker.
Throttled. What a great word.
Choker, what a great word, right? And she's all covered up. She's wearing animal pelt around her lapel. And her face, like Anna said earlier, she's got such a dulled expression. Such a contrast to the young girl. It's almost like this one is taken, well, we can't know, obviously, because we're putting contemporary filters on how we're looking at this, but she seems so locked in already.
Kate, you said, I heard you say affected. Well, how about unaffected?
I don't remember saying affected. Yeah, unaffected. Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out, because going with that Like even her partner or the man who's interested in her seems to kind of be more saying yeah than she is. She's kind of still I'm looking at, because he looks to me more interested than her, even though they're both interested. But it's, I cannot even like explain, because he's not necessarily smiling, barely, but there's just there's a warmth to her and a complete kind of mischievousness, I think, in his gaze to her. And going
Unless,
back to it, yes.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just, there's that kind of boyish, mischievous look to her, and she's um captivated by it, but not in a romantic way, just captivated, or take, that powerlessness, or that going with it, and kind of at this point, just, it's really like she looks exhausted as well.
Mhm.
Another take was, if he's not looking at her, actually, if he's looking past her to the cockatiel glass, and that's his expression of wonderment or
Yeah,
interest, then her expression then reads to me as almost, oh, if only he would look at me that way. That
Wow.
there's a remove in her observing him, what it looks like when he looks at something with interest.
yeah, yeah.
That's the 17 magazine interpretation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think she looks the most kind of, her emotions, I'm most, well, not most, I mean, I'm also, or I'm significantly concerned about as well, because they're so unrevealed, but kind of
Mhm.
suggested. At least the kind of, the kids show it, and that's the kind of their beauty, and that's what makes them give a lot of lessons, because we learn, what we've been saying. She looks like she's unable to express the emotions. She's kind of not. She doesn't seem like, and I mean, in typical, I feel it's typical in a lot of old-fashioned stories. I'm thinking of Daisy from The Great Gatsby, and someone else from another one. I mean, I always kind of, personally, to kind of bias, I was very like, they're not very strong characters in terms of standing up and fending for whatever opinion they might have had, or, I mean, that's a whole different book and story, but she's not standing up for one thing or the other here. She just seems very kind of, like, talking about what Julia said, kind of activity and inactivity. Like, I don't think she's with this idea, but she's not doing anything about it. I don't think she will ever in life, it seems. She might take it to the grave. No, it's that type of look.
Yeah, yeah. There's an inertia, at least, regardless of the specifics of where he's looking and what she's wanting. Those two kind of, there's not a lot of activity in them. That I think is also the same as that inactivity that we see in the foreground with the thinker and the watcher, which says something interesting about the way we react in situations that we haven't encountered before, that are potentially really uncomfortable and troublesome. It's this kind of looking awayness of avoidance, or maybe of deep reflection and contemplation before you act. Someone else said, we're definitely looking through this through a very modern lens. So it's hard to imagine what people in the mid-18th century are actually thinking and wondering and afraid of or passionate about here. I want us to take the opportunity to embrace that lens right now, and to talk about how does this scene relate to your world right now? How does this particular scene relate to anything going on with you professionally, personally, locally, globally? Do you see any similarities between this and what you experience?
Well, on a very kind of straightforward, even a very, very recent note for me, I mean, there was a car crash right outside my house just a few weeks ago, and there were several of these kind of bystanders for it. Even the people, authorities were very kind of one way. I mean, it wasn't very revealing. I think they got rid of the driver pretty quickly into the ambulance and so on. But even, you know, I was inside myself. I didn't hear or know about it. I didn't know anything about it. I was having lunch, and I think my dad just heard about it, and he was kind of like the kid. He was like, "Oh my God, there's a crash," and he goes out, and everyone's just looking from their homes, can't see anything, and they won't do anything, but they're just kind of looking because they're really curious about this. You know, something happened, and then, um, you know, and then yeah, the police were like, oh yeah, move on by, or, you know, get on, or maybe avoid this area, but just carry on with your life and don't worry. And yep, cars just, I mean, obviously everything was diverted and it was quiet, and then within a couple of days, it was like nothing happened. We can walk across where the car was like flipped upside down. It was just interesting. So just in terms of that kind of bystander effect it's here, or and that's a very kind of you know, very concrete example, or a very kind of activity example. That's just so recent, so I just thought I'd bring it up, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's there's an actual word for that, right? Like the what is the word for when everybody slows down to look at the accident at the same time?
Rubbernecking.
Rubbernecking, yeah. And it's a very human response to like stop and look and see.
Yeah, but without that kind of, well, I don't want to speak for the whole world, because I mean, I think there's a lot of those kids looking at incidences like that, but even on the news, you know, you go, oh, and that's all. You know, there is a disconnect, I think, sometimes when serious life and death things happen sometimes, and not that it's, you know, death is the worst thing, but just it's striking, and some people avoid it through kind of a numbness.
That is such a great point. And that really makes sense now why the young folks are the ones who are looking directly at it. Maybe the older ones have become numb to it, or they've seen things this challenging before and they know not to look directly at it or to find diversion.
Yeah. I mean, it's an example of a lot of things. That was just my one, but I mean,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot. It doesn't have to be life and death at all. It could be anything. It could be definitely anything social.
Absolutely.
Like,
Yeah, I think the news is a great analogy
yeah,
for the bird in the jar.
yeah.
What else? What else is that bird? Oh, go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, I was going to just throw out as well, not really thinking it comes to anything like bullying, or, you know, just an injustice, an injustice being taking place, and how everyone kind of responds to questionable things, or, you know, or there's lots of experiments, you know, where if there's a smell or if there's smoke in a room, and if you're all put in the experiment is everyone walks into a room and they're all they're filling out a questionnaire, not knowing that the experiment is smoke is being put into the room, like just odorless smoke, and it's safe, but it's being poured into the room and no one's getting up to leave, and so everyone stays or something. And I think one of the questions, or a question after, was like, did you notice the smoke and did you want to leave? And they're like, yes, I really want to leave, but no one got up. Or and I think maybe they did a catalyst or a balancing experiment. I'm butchering it, but, you know, where they got a deliberate person to go in, and like they left and then everyone left. You know, it was just kind of who everyone's followers, you know, or not much standing up people, or intuitive people even. You don't have to be an activist, but intuitive.
Yeah. 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 And how many people in the scene are responding to their own intuitions? So I'm sure we could spend another hour talking just about that. What you also, I love this analogy of the smoke filtering through the room, because it really dovetails with this idea of the properties of air and the experiments run with the properties of air. you know what, we started off by talking about our blind spots, the thing, you know, so familiar to us that we don't even see them anymore. What do you, if you had to see this painting through very contemporary eyes, what would you imagine as being symbolized here with either the bird or the experiment with air? What does that symbolize to you right now in your life?
For me, it's the illusion
Mm,
of mastery that comes from applying our knowing minds. And the moon confined, and it's behind its shroud of clouds. It merits one pane, one framed pane in the window, and it's off to the side. It's in the margin of the painting. And that, to me, speaks to the way wonderment is minimized
mm,
in contemporary, at least Western
mhm.
life.
Yeah.
Julia, right now, I see a lot of suffering in the world.
Mm.
I feel a lot of pain in the world.
Mhm.
And I see a lot of folks who are dealing with it in very different ways, but not a lot of people know what to do about it. And I feel that coming through strongly here in this room. It looks like there are very few of those participants who are really focused on like, hey guys, that bird can't breathe. That bird's dying. And that's what's important in this room right now. And then everybody else seems to be focused on something else. So that just struck me when you asked that question as the overarching connection between that painting and right now for me. So just want to shout it out.
And how interesting, maybe even ironic, now that I'm thinking about it in light of your comment, that the one person who is really responsible for this, for the experiment themselves, who's keeping this bird trapped here, is, to me, looking straight at us saying, what are you going to do about it? You know, seems to be the one character here who's asking for some sort of action to take place when there's so much, you know, not knowing what to do with it happening within the painting. He almost seems to be looking outside of the painting, maybe not antagonistically, just curiously. Like, what is your reaction going to be, dear viewer?
Even the outstretched hand, the connotation, like, you know, what do I do kind of thing, right? Or
Yes, gesturing like almost toward us.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
An invitation. And how ironic that invitation comes from the one doing the experiment, which brings us back to that excellent question you asked earlier. When we science, who is vulnerable?
Yeah. I don't even see the scientist as the kind of, I don't say the worst one, but you know, I don't want to even say the scientist as the blindest one at all, you know, or the one who's wrong or doing the unjust. He's kind of just, it's his, everyone has kind of a right to what they can do and can share, and he might be doing this for a really, really important reason, and
Mhm.
maybe he's done his own ethics on it. You know, maybe he's thought it through like the philosopher is doing, and once you really think about it, when you can put your own, when you can sit comfortably in yourself, which I think he's actually the only one doing. You know, everyone else is just like, you know, can't say a word and he can. And although it's good that he has a word, if he's the only one who can do it, then it's not fair or not balanced. But he just seems like, you know, if he's the scientist or the artist, you know, it's just, you can't stop him, and you can only, you know, respond in your own independent way and see if you can meet middle ground, or but I don't know where I was going with that, but
No, I love that observation that he's the one who seems most comfortable in his skin here.
yeah.
He's not looking away from the bird because he can't look at it. It's almost like old news to him. And he's in his
Yeah.
bathrobe, his hair is disheveled. He's
Yeah,
just, yeah.
And in words, he gets away with it or something.
Yeah.
He's getting away with whatever he's doing.
Yeah. Yeah, how very interesting that one figure who's kind of the the most active agent here, the cause of all of this, is the one who's also the most relaxed in his role and is gesturing outside of the painting to us to wonder what role we're going to take vis-a-vis this as well.
Yeah. It's kind of, what do you think?
Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah. What do you think about
about
it?
this? So
I agree, and I think that's exactly the expression on his face. It looks concerned to me though. Like, what do you think? Don't you agree? I mean, he doesn't look like he's very sure. He looks like he's questioning.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Anna or Julia or anyone. What do you think?
I'm struck by how kind of open his expression looks towards us. I mean, that's why I said it was kind of like, beautiful earlier on. I mean, I might take back the words beautiful, but he looks, yeah, I think he looks genuinely interested in what we have to say. He's not like, he's not showing off and being like, look what I've done. He's not like, what do you think? Even though I'm right. He's kind of like, look, I want you to know. I want to hear from you. Like the kind of light in his eyes is quite interesting, I think. That little reflection, and it's not intimidating to me.
Could this be a stand-in for the painter? Maybe I'm making this up here, but I'm wondering. I mean, this disheveled look. Like, I see also an artist. I see also somebody, who, there's artistry happening here too, and who but the artist is most interested in asking the viewers to engage. Maybe this is his personal proxy.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
I think he's thinking. He's the one who's dreaming and daydreaming nearly. These guys around him, they are not doing that, and I think it can come across as ignorant because they're just putting up their pretty clothes and enjoying the spectacle of the illusions of life. I don't think they're. I don't want to be judgmental, but just I'm going with the guy, who in the robe.
And the dreamer also makes me think too, like, it makes sense now why we have very stereotypical people around him. It's almost as if he's the only real one now, and the others are figments. We've got the family, the lovers, the philosophers, go ahead.
And I mean, I think clearly if he's called everyone to come, it's the full moon, and full moons are very auspicious and stuff, and maybe he's aware. There's a disconnect, but there's also tuning in to the moon. Like it's there as a kind of a background, and maybe suggesting it could be a little bit lighter, but it's also, I think the scientist is aware that it's a full moon. Maybe the rest don't even know.
Yeah.
He knows. Maybe.
Yeah. I knew when I chose this painting, we were going to go way over and just talking about it because there's so much going on and you have to pay attention to all of it. But I love where we've ended up, which is really this question of how do you feel about this, as John asked. I hope we'll get a chance to explore that in our writing. I'm going to go ahead and give us a writing prompt, unless there are any last burning observations that we want to make about an experiment before we write. Great. So we're going to take 5 minutes to write. After that, we'll go into breakout rooms, but if you have to skedaddle after your writing, I totally understand. I know we have met time today just with our close reading. I knew that was going to happen. So if you need to skedaddle after writing, please feel free to share your writing with somebody in your world who you love and trust, that will reflect back to you generously. So our prompt today, here I'm going to start my share again. See if I can. Well, I'll just read it out to you. So your prompt today is, write about a time you looked away, or write about a time you looked too close for comfort. Take just a few seconds to decide first what you want to respond to. I'll read it again. Write about a time you looked away, or write about a time you looked too close for comfort. All right, I'll start my 5-minute timer now. We normally close up just by talking about how we feel after all this sharing and reading together and listening together. Just one word. How are you guys feeling?
I would actually say I feel inspired.
Great.
You have, yeah. And it's like you've modeled another form of listening for me to, grow into. And yeah, I feel inspired to be more like that in life outside of this, because it is very healing the way you do.
Thanks, Steph.
Mm-hmm.
I feel grateful. I know we had a smaller group today, and it's a very grateful weekend for me because we just had our baby shower here and we had our friends here, and I know I'm very hormonal right now because of pregnancy, but I'm just, to share this time with you guys it means the world to me. And to hear your stories, I feel really honored, really blessed to be able to hold them with you guys and to learn from you. So I just feel very grateful.
I'm going to stick to one word. I've been trying to figure out what it would be. I'm going to say enrichment, if that's a word.
Great.
Or enriched, that's the word.
I love that. Thank you. So many words.
Yeah. I mean, I think I always come out of these a little bit. I mean, I want to say connected, because that's kind of on the official way it is, it seems. But I mean, like personally, just kind of nurtured or nourished to go with my consumption thing. Nourished would be just what I come out of these things.
Ooh, I love that. I love that for you, Anna, because it's full circle, right? Your writing was about purging the sick, and this is a kind of the nourishment that comes with it. So beautiful. Beautiful. Well, thank you guys so much. Thank you for hanging out with me this long. I promised to get you out of here 20 minutes ago. I'm terrible, but I just don't want to close down conversation when it's so good. So thank you so much for hanging out with me, diving into the blind spots. And
thank you for creating this, Julia, and making it accessible and available Thank you, Stephanie, for joining us. Thank you, Anna, for all those
Thank you for
beautiful,
having me.
magical insights.
Everyone.
Yeah.
All of
For having me.
everybody's magical insights. You guys are all just so brilliant. Hopefully we'll see you next month. Next month, John is going to be leading our group. He is going to be, he's at Columbia finishing up his narrative medicine certification right now, and he is studying pedagogy. So we're going to be talking about, and I'm going to be they're assisting the class, but he'll be leading it. So I hope you can come and support him. He is absolutely wonderful. As you know, I know you guys have worked with him plenty in the past. So I'll see you guys next month, and please keep in touch in the meantime.
Thanks, Julia. Congratulations on the baby shower.
Thank you. Thanks, y'all. I'll see you soon.
Take
Bye,
care.
Stephanie.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Lovely
Bye.
talking to you. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.